All right, let's go straight across now to Bishop Garrison, former senior advisor to the Secretary of Defense and a current senior fellow and adjunct professor, National Security Institute at the George Mason University Law School with us. A lot to unpack. Thanks very much for being here. I have to first, before we get into how things really reached this point in the ceasefire in itself, looking at the way things stand right now, the truce was already looking fragile. In J.D. Vance's words, it has been fragile, but now it's looking increasingly fragile with the series of attacks. Now the latest one coming in Lebanon, with Israel carrying out its deadliest attack there. Iran also saying it will withdraw from the ceasefire if the attacks on Lebanon continue. What do you make of the way things have panned out right now?
Thank you for having me. Well, one, I want to say we don't need to start out so hyperbolic in terms of who has won and who has lost. No one has won and no one has lost at this point. One thing we know is that this is an ongoing conflict. Yes, there is a temporary ceasefire in place, but to your point, that is a very fragile, unfortunately, thing at this point, because we're continuing to see operations taking place in Lebanon between Israeli forces and the Lebanese. So there's still a lot of movement that is going to be a part of this, and we all just need to take a step back and see how it continues to develop.
Right. With the way things are developing right now, where do you see things headed? And what do you think needs to happen for this truce to hold then?
Well, first, I think there does need to be a solidified ceasefire within Lebanon. I think we need to see exactly what the terms are and come to agreement. As Iranian forces understand it right now, Lebanon would be a part of the ceasefire. The United States just said a little while ago, and maybe about an hour ago, so that they had not yet recognized Lebanon as being a part of it from the White House, from the press secretary. So that's a key force here. Another piece we need to determine is the future of the Strait of Hormuz. In the midst of this, originally we had ships, we had cargo, we had oil that moved freely through the strait, and now Iranian officials say that even with their depleted military, that they're going to now work as the guards, so to speak, of that region and determine who is allowed to move freely through and who has to stop and potentially even pay some type of restitution for utilizing the strait. So there's still a lot of moving pieces here that need to be addressed.
Right. We will come to the Strait of Hormuz in just a bit. I want to first pick on that point that you just mentioned about the very fact that we're looking at these attacks unfolding in Lebanon, because a lot depends on that. Iran already saying it will withdraw from the ceasefire if those attacks on Lebanon continue. So you're saying with the way things stand right now, with that ambiguity continuing, we do see things remaining uncertain, you're saying?
Well, I think that you're going to see all sides, to include third parties like Pakistan, continuing to try to bring a finalization of these terms to the group right now. You can't have one group that believes that there is an active ceasefire and another saying that it includes a different region that is currently not in the ceasefire. So again, for what we have right now in terms of U.S., Israel, and Iran, I believe we do have at least a temporary ceasefire in activity, but all parties need to come together on exactly what is happening in Lebanon and how we plan to move forward accordingly.
How do you see the U.S. navigating this? And what do you make of Israel's stance right now, the messaging it's trying to send out with those attacks in Lebanon then?
I think the Israeli forces are continuing to say that they see a clear and present danger to themselves right now, to their way of life, and they're going to continue to fight through it on all circumstances. And I think the United States, as it has continued in reports that we know, having conversations with Israeli leadership and the Israeli government, they're going to continue to navigate this as best they can through diplomatic channels and have the Israelis take a step back. Any type of ceasefire that leads to lasting peace if we're continuing to see this type of kinetic activity within the region. And that's exactly what's taking place right now. It's going to be difficult, but this entire situation continues to evolve and become more difficult as it unfolds. So the United States is in a very difficult position right now, but they're going to continue to do their best to bring all parties to the table and have the correct type of conversation they need to in order to reach that lasting peace.
Right. Speaking of the Strait of Hormuz, now a lot of question marks on that front as well, and a lot of uncertainty. But, given that the Strait was never actually a part of those war objectives in itself, it has now become a pain point for the United States, as was anticipated. And it was the U.S. that ultimately, saw this coming and then had to, in a way, also keep that in mind, given the fallout.
Yeah, so it's going to continue to be a pain point now. Initially, the Trump administration, the United States government said we were moving forward on this due to the imminent threat that Iran posed, particularly around the potential of gaining a nuclear weapon, as well as conventional weapons that they were targeting Israel with. And now we have another layer to this. Now we have continued economic strife that, quite frankly, is unlikely to go away quickly. So we're going to have to continue to have diplomatic relations and these long talks with the Iranian government to get some type of normality back into the way that we're looking at the movement of oil and goods within the region.
All right, we're leaving it there for the moment. Thanks very much for joining us with those perspectives.
Thank you for having me.